Gentlemen, as I said, I'd like to go through some more programmatic questions now, turning away from the big picture. Senator King, I will invite you to interject at any point where you might have anything to add. I'll direct my question to one of the witnesses, but if anyone would like to volunteer for an answer, please feel free to jump in. If the question is directed towards you and you'd like to volunteer one of your peers to answer, please do that as well. General Milley and Deputy Secretary McCarthy addressed a lot of the Army's top modernization priorities last year at the AUSA convention, so I'll take my guidance in part from their remarks. The first among that is long-range precision fires. General Ostrowski, can you tell us where the long-range precision fires program stands today, and when do we expect capability to reach the field?
Yes, sir, I'd be happy to. The long-range precision fires is in the technology maturity risk reduction phase. We have two competitors, Raytheon as well as Lockheed Martin, that will be providing us up to four missiles exactly, by the fourth quarter of 19 in order to flight test those missiles. We'll flight test 3 of the 4. From that point, we'll be able to determine just how close we're getting to the requirement of the 499 capability in terms of kilometers in the range. Depending on the maturity of what we get, the intent is to move into a milestone B on that program in second quarter of 21 and move forward from there. Again, it will all depend on where we stand in terms of the technology and how fast we can deliver this capability. Right now, worst case scenario, 27. The intent is to move that more towards 25 or earlier, but it will all depend on how capable those missiles are in the fourth quarter of 19.
You mentioned 499. That is to remain compliant with the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty?
That is correct, sir.
So it's now acknowledged openly by the United States government that Russia is in violation of that treaty. Of course, China is not a signatory to that treaty, nor is any other nation on Earth, which means the United States is the only country that restricts its long-range missile development to under 500 kilometers. Do those restrictions inhibit the Army's ability to develop a long-range precision fire capability that can outrange Russian and Chinese threats? And does it put our forces at a disadvantage?
In terms of ballistic missiles, absolutely.
Thank you. Let's move on, General Murray, since you volunteered for that question, to the next modernization priority, the next generation ground combat vehicle. We're still, as I understand, in a very early stage and unclear whether it would be a vehicle to replace the Bradley or the Abrams or both. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. To be determined.
So what's the Army leadership doing to analyze feasibility for foreign vehicle designs or component systems for suitability in this program?
So right now we are looking at all options to include foreign vehicle design and new development, to be honest with you. And you mentioned the Chief's remarks not only at AUSA breakfast but in lots of other places, and he is very much focused on a 10x capability. And he acknowledged some of the technologies do not exist. So some of the things we're looking for is alternative power, so get away from diesel turbine engines or piston engines. The Chief has been very clear on any future combat vehicle development will at least have be optionally manned, if not semi-autonomous or autonomous. So commanders at the point of contact will have the option to send the vehicle forward unmanned or manned. We're looking at the incorporation of probably simple AI at this point. So driver assist, 360-degree SA, computer-assisted targeting and acquisition functions within the turret. We're looking at absolutely an integrated active protective system on the next generation vehicle, whichever one it is, and both. Enhanced lethality, a lighter weight, so we get away with the weight issues we have with the current generation of combat vehicles. And whatever we come up with, we have to account for operations in dense urban terrain, which I think the Chief has said. So that's a lot out there that may not exist right now. So what allies are developing, what Senator Warren said is being developed within the commercial industry, small business, universities, academia, in the science and technology range. I mean, we've cast a wide net, but I go back to what I've said earlier. We can't wait 20 years to develop this vehicle, so we've got to find a solution that we can develop fairly quickly, that we can incorporate technologies as they mature in a relatively easy manner.
If we return to the contrast in the prior round of questioning to the modernization programs in the 1980s, which by and large succeeded, and the FCS, which failed. One difference is that those 1980s programs were complementary, and the complementary and separate, not a single platform that was going to do all things for all people. So that way, if they failed, I think there was an anti-aircraft gun in the 1980s that ended up failing, you still have your utility helicopter, your attack helicopter, so on and so forth. With this next generation combat vehicle, put us at risk of something like the FCS again, that we're trying to build a platform that can do multiple different roles, and if it fails, then we fail across all those roles or functions.
Potentially, and I think that's something we have to keep in mind as we go forward. I think, I've read the report on the FCS. I think most of us have read the report on the FCS, and the Army senior leadership is committed not to make the same mistakes again. And I think some of the mistakes we did is we bet on a technology and developed a platform around those technologies. And when those technologies didn't deliver, the platform didn't deliver. And so the intent is, as we've said before, Senator, is figure out what is physically possible from a technology standpoint to do today before we go into development, and then make sure we build the space into the vehicle to incorporate technologies that we know are coming in the future. We don't want to deliver something the day you deliver it's obsolete.
Let me turn to the third priority, active protection systems. Those are systems that are designed to protect vehicles from threats like RPGs or long-range anti-tank missiles. These are already fielded in Israel and Russia. The German Army is beginning to acquire systems from one of its domestic producers. Sweden and Singapore are acquiring systems from Germany. And the U.S. Army has recently acquired 3 systems for testing for foreign and domestic designers, learning how to integrate their designs into Abrams, Bradleys, and Strykers. I think this is largely a good news story, an example of how the Army can be more flexible in looking to foreign systems and commercially available systems. General Murray, can you discuss the status of this effort and the Army's recent position on the recent DOT&E report that outlines some of the remaining technical challenges during that we might encounter during the testing?
Absolutely, Senator. So we bought a very limited number of the trophy system, and you said integrated. It's really not integrated. It's installed on the Abrams tank. We took it through characterization. We took it through a mobility testing, human proving ground. We had some issues we've worked through, and we're fairly satisfied with where we are on the trophy system. That was phase 1, the characterization phase. Phase 2, the testing phase, is really what DOT&E pointed out in terms of working through everything else we have to in terms of testing. But we are fairly comfortable with where we are on the trophy. Other than it is installed, it is not an integrated system on that tank. It's added weight, it's added width, and so it's really just kind of compounded our problem. But it is through characterization, we're very satisfied with it. Iron Curtain on the Stryker and Iron Fist on the Bradley have had some issues over the last 6 months or so in terms of their characterization. It probably was to be expected. They're much less mature systems than Trophy was. Iron Fist is an Israeli system, and Iron Curtain is a domestically produced system. Iron Fist right now they've worked through their issues. According to the engineers, we should start characterization on that system at down at Redstone Test Center, probably the end of this month, maybe beginning of March, and Iron Curtain is finishing up its characterization. And then we're going to fundamentally have to make a decision on really all 3 systems, but in particular the last 2. And part of, failing early is the willingness to walk away. So based upon what we have seen, are those the systems we want, or are they not the systems we want? And if they're not, then some of the other systems you mentioned, we'd be willing to go look at before we make a decision. And then ultimately at the end, and I just had a session on this yesterday, our integrated system, the MAP system, Modular Active Protective System, is our stepping stone to the future, so that soldiers have common interfaces no matter what vehicle they're on. It gives a soft kill, hard kill capability. It gives a target acquisition capability, so when you get shot at, salute a queue. But it is the system that any effector, any radar, any EOIR sensor can fit into, and it's completely integrated into the vehicle design.
Thank you. Turn to a 4th priority, air defense. General Anderson, I'll return to you since we discussed earlier. It's been at least since the Korean War, since United States ground forces have kind of under sustained aerial attack. Obviously, the threats that we face from China and Russia, though, could mean that kind of threat would return. You mentioned, taking Stingers out of the warehouses. Stinger and Avenger have been in service for 4 decades, I think. how confident are we in the ability of those weapon systems to effectively counteract threats from Russian or Chinese aircraft?
That's why earlier we've never fought in this type of environment. So what you're talking about, they are not capable, sir. So the issue becomes, what's the next generation? Everything I talked to you about were additive things from sensors to radars, and to provide some capability to give yourself a chance. But at the end of the day, we've never faced something like that. So the issue becomes now, as we work the MSC, the PAC-3 MSC, it's got to be in the munitions, and it's got to be. And right now, it's a sheer function of. That's why when you talked about gaps earlier, we've got to restore BMD capabilities that are much broader. We're short THAAD. We're short Patriot. We're actually reallocating Patriots as we speak from one COCOM to another to deal with things on the Korean Peninsula. And so that is the capability gap that we are focusing on in the near term as part of the modernization strategy. It's fires and BMD because we are shortchanged in both by capability and capacity.
So better than nothing, which is largely what we currently have.
The Stinger thing was a purely, it was amazing. We pulled it off. It was a purely minimalistic approach to make sure that there was something, and this also affects the counter UAS fight. So for that is a whole different story, as you know, and that there are about 19 systems. That is a good news story. How the Army went commercial off the shelf, used other existing systems from other countries, and gave our soldiers about 19 options over that. Everything from lasers to drone defenders to lids to odds, all stuff that has worked. And so that was a game changer pretty quickly in Iraq. Now the question becomes how effective are they going to be in places like the Korean Peninsula, Eastern Europe.
Thank you. Let's turn to a fifth priority, which is kind of the opposite side of the same coin, future vertical lift and the vulnerability of our aircraft to enemy air defenses, in particular the Black Hawk replacement. There's some ambitious requirements that were laid out to travel twice as far and twice as fast compared to traditional helicopters in the same class. But at the same time, it's going to be facing a lot of new threats in terms of integrated air defenses and increasingly advanced man-portable air defense systems. What steps is the Army taking to make sure that future platform can be survivable in that kind of environment?
Mr. Chairman, I can take that particular question. You're very familiar with the joint multi-role tech demonstrator that we have going on right now, two different aircraft, both with Boeing and Bell. We've had the flights go on with Bell in terms of the tilt rotor aircraft, and we have hope that by late this summer that we'll see the Boeing compound coaxial helicopter in flight. The efforts and the information that we'll gain from both those tech demonstrators will allow us to be able to move forward in terms of our priorities of capability sets, whether it be 1, 2, or capability set 3, of which these are based upon. Aircraft survivability with respect to that platform and our current fleet remains paramount to us. It is one of our top priorities within future vertical lift and the whole combat. So with respect to that, we are investing heavily with respect to the CMOS program, as well as getting after the ability to interdict the particular missiles while in flight. Now, this is tough because we're always shooting behind the duck. And I think you know what I mean with respect to that. In order to defend an aircraft against a ground-based missile, you have to be able to confuse that missile. In order to do that, you must be able to take the steps necessary in order to create the software to execute that. That takes time and testing. We have to go after a kinetic capability, one that is not dependent upon software in order to defeat or dazzle the particular surface-to-air missile. That's what we're trying to get after. That's the next step. Just like we have APS for our combat vehicle fleet in the future, in terms of that, we have to have APS for our aircraft.
What steps, if any, is the Army taking to promote the use of those future platforms across the joint force or with allied partners? I'm always somewhat mystified when a multi-role, workhorse is not as widely accepted outside of the Army as it ought to be.
The current program is a joint United States Marine Corps, United States Army program. I would say very limited interest right now from allies because they're kind of waiting to see where we go with this. And as General Ostrowski mentioned, The CFT, the Future Vertical Lift CFT, obviously is very focused on this in terms of, are we on the right path? Are we on the right timeline? What are the critical capabilities we got to look at? Because you mentioned, we're looking for a fundamentally different, we're changing the physics of rotary wing flight. And so to make sure we've got it right, that has become a focus that we are on the right path to get there. And I do think the joint multi-role demonstrator is potentially a way of doing things in the future. We have invested less than 50%, well less than 50% of the money to develop these demonstrators. This is mostly an industry nickel, which is, I think, probably the right way to go as we get into the future for other major programs.
How feasible would it be to have buy-in from the Navy or the Air Force for some of their rotary wing requirements? One constant question the subcommittee, in addition to the larger committee, explores, for instance, is the need for a rotary wing helicopter for the Air Force to maintain security and safety at its ICBM sites in the western United States. Again, it's strange to me that a specialized helicopter is needed for that kind of mission.
I would agree with you, Senator. But right now, I think it's very much the other services, much like our allies, are waiting for us to kind of figure out where we're going to take this. And I do think, if we're successful, obviously it would be a very capable aircraft that would be obviously a multi-role aircraft. And I think they're waiting to see how much the aircraft will cost, what the capabilities of the aircraft are, because each service has unique capabilities that we require in our aircraft. For us, it's about mobility on the objective, to get soldiers on and off the objective. The Marine Corps have a slightly different priority, the Navy has a different priority, and of course the Air Force has a different priority for their aircraft. But I do think it will be a very capable aircraft that potentially could be utilized by all four services.
Senator, I would just add that this wheel has been created. The Black Hawk today, the Air Force flies. The Black Hawk today, the Navy flies. Different variants and so forth. It was never a joint program to begin with, but the other services have adopted our material solution.
Sixth, networks, especially mobile networks, WIN-T and DSIGs. I think you're all aware that this is something on which I focused for many years. General Ostrowski, what's the plan to repair the mobile network?
So again, our strategy is to halt those efforts in terms of WIN-T Increment 2 that we know are not going to work in a contested environment. We will build upon Increment 1B, as we have, that's our system at the halt, and we will buy modified pieces of Increment 2. In other words, what we have right now is for our NOSC light, or our NOSCs and our TCNs, we have mobile capability, but it's capability placed on the family of medium tactical vehicles. We can shrink those down, and we have been able to do so, and that was just reported out in the DOT and E-test that was released just recently with respect to the NOSC light and TCN light. We owe that capability on the move to our SBCTs and our IBCTs, so we'll move forward with purchasing of that. The rest of the money with respect to the network is going to go after the pivot and the fix piece with respect to where we're going. And I believe that you are aware that obviously we know what we have to do in terms of a network of the future. We have to find the transport mechanism, the transport layer first. That was clear in the IDA report, and that is where we're going after. We have to modernize that piece. Once we get a transport layer and we decide what that is going to be in the future, we can then ensure that industry that wants to participate in our network of the future is able to link into those standards and that architecture. In the meantime, between that network of the future and now, we have to continue to be able to fight tonight. So that means fixing what we have, which is our current strategy, and then buying incremental capabilities that we're finding with respect to the SOF community, because we've teamed greatly with them as well as the Marine Corps, and have several solution sets for the individual soldier and battalion and below that we're going to move forward to in terms of experimenting and prototyping to get at a medium or an interim capability while we wait for that next generation network.
Seems like an area that is ripe for commercial, off-the-shelf solutions.
That is absolutely correct, Senator. And the bottom line is that is exactly where we're going. Eventually, we would like to hopefully get to a point where we can buy this as a service. Now, that is the Chief's vision. That is where we're trying to push this thing towards, and that's why we want to continue to give problem statements to industry as opposed to be very specific with respect to our requirements. Allow them the freedom to be able to offer solution sets based on what they know is in terms of the capable and reasonable in terms of technology.
General Anderson, I saw you nodding vigorously. Would you like to add anything?
No, sir. Watching this for a couple of years and all the testing, which you just said, it's as plain as day. The stuff is out there, and we're trying to reinvent the wheel. And the Net Warrior is the perfect example. A phone with apps. Soldiers love it.
If we could go back in time, we could just buy every soldier a smartphone and put some apps on it.
Just like you do your AT&T bill, do it for our soldiers' personal device.
And that's one of the big initiatives, right? So they didn't love it when it was a classified network. So one of the things we're looking at is how far down do classified networks need to go. So the secure but unclassified network opens up all kinds of possibilities. You talk about commercial purchases. I mean, the key piece of Net Warrior is a mobile phone you can buy, in the kiosks on the corner. I mean, that is the key piece of technology that's in that Net Warrior system.
Okay. Seventh priority, let's get down to the front lines, soldier lethality. General Murray, there's been a proliferation of body armor, specifically Russian and Chinese, specifically designed to defeat traditional 5.56 NATO ammunition, which is, of course, what our soldiers fire from their M4s. What are we doing to address what's a very serious issue for the soldier on the front lines?
So we have several efforts ongoing, Senator. The first one would be the Squad Designated Marksman Rifle, which is the near-term gap. So that is a 7.62 capability that gives us the ability to penetrate the most advanced body armor in the world, along with the advanced armor-piercing round that's in development. We are accelerating the SDMR, or the Squad Designated Marksman Rifle, to 18. So we will start fielding that in 18. We had hoped to accelerate the ADVAP round, the advanced armor-piercing round, to 18 as well to line up with that, but we're about a year off. So we will develop that ammo, field it in 19. You can still fire 7.62, and you can still penetrate. You just can't get quite the range you will with the next generation round. That's phase one. Phase two is the development of what we're calling the next generation squad weapon. First iteration will probably be an automatic rifle to replace the SAW, which is also a 5.56. We've been pushed on the M27, which the Marine Corps has adopted. That is also a 5.56, which doesn't penetrate. So we're going to go down the path of next generation squad weapon, automatic rifle first, to be closely followed, I'm hopeful, for either a rifle or a carbine that will fire something other than a 5.56. It probably won't be a 7.62. It'll probably be something in between. Case telescoping round, probably polymer casing to reduce the weight of it. We have in the S&T community a demonstration weapon right now. It's too big, it's too heavy, but we've recently opened it up to commercial industry for them to come in with their ideas about how they would get to that. We've offered them some money to come in and prototype for us that type of weapon. We believe with that weapon, with a new ammo, we can achieve probably weights similar to the M4 5.56 ammo. The weapon will probably weigh a little bit more. The ammo will probably weigh a little bit less. And we can get penetration of the most advanced body armor in the world, probably well out beyond even the max effective range of the current M4. And that's what we see as a replacement for the M4 in the future, not the SMDR.
Time frame on that?
I think you said 2018 for the SDMR.
We're right when we started off, and Paul, you can correct me. I think we were out around 25 or 26, and I think we're back to about 23 now.
I would just say that between the S&T effort that we have ongoing with Textron and the OTA, other transaction authority, that we're going to offer to other vendors in 18, the intent is to try to do a fly-off between those particular companies by the end of 21 in order to provide some kind of capability by 22 or 23 at the latest.
What was 2018? Was that the new squad designated marksman rifle?
Correct.
And how does that differ from the rifle that was carried the last decade in Iraq and Afghanistan? I think, was it an M14?
The EBR. It is a much better. The EBR was a modified and adopted M14, which was it never got. I mean, it looks significantly different than anything else in the squad. So if you carried it, you look like a target. This rifle is basically a variation of a sniper rifle, so it's very accurate, but it's also capable of automatic fire.
Sort of looks a lot like an M4.
Okay. General Dias, any thoughts beyond simply this question about penetrating Russian and Chinese armor? Any broader thoughts about standard Infantry Squad Kit and changes that might be coming to it?
There's a couple things, Senator. Night vision devices. I think that there's some activity that could go on there, and expanding the combat footprint of a whatever size unit, let's say a squad or a platoon. The use of small micro or quadcopters for air, which is a much less complicated environment than on the ground. I think that there will be most likely some ground robotics that are out there, but it's a much more complicated area than in the air. So I think that you'll see maybe some expansion of the battle space and maybe awareness of small units and night vision are two other areas that I think on the soldier lethality part.
Putting the second one in layman's terms, a little drone with a camera on it?
That is correct.
And that's the equipment piece. And I mean, there's also a significant effort going on in terms of treating the rifle squad as a weapon system. So we have continued to improve our own body armor to lightweight it, to make it better. The weapons you've talked about, not only small arms, but automatic weapons, anti-tank weapons, the Carl Gustaf, lightweighting that. And then probably as importantly is the non-material solution. So how do we provide holistic fitness to our what the Army exists to do, close with and destroy the enemy? How do we provide, get the best and brightest, and then provide them the holistic health and fitness and training materials? So in terms of simulations and synthetic training environments, and how do you allow them to do multiple reps in some sort of very realistic synthetic environment so they get 100 reps before they go to battle for the first time?
If I could just dig a little bit more on that, because it was my last question on this topic about outfitting the infantry squad, infantry platoon for enemy tanks, enemy attack aircraft. Obviously, that's not a consideration that's been foremost on our minds over the last 17 years on the modern battlefield. I mean, AT-4s have been more about sticking who has to carry it in a sticks lane. But if we're facing Russian and Chinese threats, they're obviously going to have main battle tanks and attack aviation. So it could just be a little more detailed about that, General Murray?
Yes, sir. And so I would start off by saying that no rifle squad fights by itself. Mm-hmm. And our experience in Iraq and Afghanistan, I would never hesitate to send out a platoon by itself, but I never would send out a squad by itself just because of the combined arms effect of larger formations. If we're fighting that type of foe, I would guess in an ABCT sense, I've got lots of anti-tank weapons, ways to deal with enemy tanks. SBCT less so, but I've still got javelins and other ways of dealing with it. So really the focus is the IBCTs, and that was part of the reason, although not designed to be toe-to-toe with a Soviet tank, is the mobile protective firepower, to give the light IBCTs some ability to deal with targets that they're not organically equipped to do.
It'd be down to the platoon level, or?
Depends on how the commander organizes them. It's one company per brigade, so it would depend on where that platoon was, and then there's other things like attack aviation that obviously can deal with. Okay.
General Anderson, one final modernization priority I'd like to turn to you on. It was not addressed, to my knowledge, at the AUSA by Secretary McCarthy or General Milley. That's electronic warfare. Russian doctrine that's publicly available stated they view that as a key asymmetric advantage against their adversary, namely us, both offensive and defensive. So first, correct me if I'm wrong, that I don't think it was addressed by General Milley or Secretary McCarthy. And if I'm not wrong, why it wasn't, but also just give us an update on what the Army is doing to reconstitute electronic warfare forces and capabilities.
It's all things multi-domain, sir, and trying to get a strategy, all things electromagnetic spectrum. So we've still got a couple stovepipes here between the EW community, the cyber community, the signal community, and how do we achieve effects? And that's why this IQs, we established an intel, cyber, electronic warfare space cell that we're going to task organize with 17 fires. So you've got the lethal piece, and then you're going to attack this new different icons. to get synergy between those capabilities, and then we'll go test it, as Bo was talking about, out in the Pacific Pathways and the exercises to figure out what we can do. But all we're doing right now in Europe is through the Rapid Capabilities Office is taking different electronic warfare kit, putting it together and trying to, again, it's a jamming capability. But the reason why electronic warfare is so important, if you can't find where the stuff's emitting from, it doesn't matter because you won't be able. The jammer won't be able to figure that out. That's why the synergy between the two are so critical.
I would just add, Senator, that the Rapid Capabilities Office has put a situational understanding capability in Europe now. Okay, what we have is one platoon per brigade with respect to the 2nd ACR, 2-1 ABCT, and 173rd Airborne Division. What we have, sir, is a couple of different items. One is the VROD VMAX, which is a ground-based, soldier-based, dismounted system that's able to DF signals of interest. Sabre Fury is another capability. It's a mounted platform on a Striker, for instance, that also has line of bearing. And through that, the combination of those two efforts, along with Ravenclaw, which is basically the computer that puts it all together, we have commanders able to have the situational understanding of signals of interest in their area. They then have the opportunity to do two things, either strike that particular capability with respect to indirect fires, or they have the ability to jam it, limited jamming capability. However, it is limited in terms of its jamming capability, and that's the concern that we have. It does not stand up to what our foes, our near-peer and peer competitors have in terms of their inventories, and that is the crux of the problem. We've taken risk in this area for too long.
But I think, to add on to General Ostrowski, so none of that's a program of record. So I think that is a great example, and it's really our Rapid Capability Office that's doing the prototyping and the demonstrating before we write a requirements document so we fully understand what's available and what it is we need.
Okay. Senator King?